The setup, a clash of worlds. On October 28, 2025, the Senate hearing room was packed beyond capacity. The topic, economic impact of Green New Deal proposals, had drawn unusual interest, but not because of policy wonks eager to discuss carbon emissions and renewable energy subsidies. Everyone was here for the clash they knew was coming. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez sat at the witness table, perfectly composed and camera-ready. At 36, she'd been in Congress for 7 years, transforming from a bartender-turned-congresswoman into a social media phenomenon with millions of followers. Her Instagram posts got more engagement than most news outlets. Her tweets moved markets. Her endorsements made or broke progressive candidates. She wore a burgundy suit. Expensive, but not ostentatiously so, her signature red lipstick perfectly applied. Her dark hair styled in loose waves. Everything about her presentation was calculated for maximum impact on the dozens of phones already recording every angle. Across from her, the Senate committee members took their seats. And near the end of the dais, looking like he'd wandered in from a law office in Baton Rouge, sat Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana. At 74, Kennedy was the walking embodiment of Southern understatement. Wire-rimmed glasses sliding down his nose, rumpled suit that had seen better days, a slow Louisiana drawl that made everything sound like friendly conversation. People consistently underestimated him. That was their first mistake. He had degrees from Vanderbilt, Oxford, and the University of Virginia Law School. He'd served as Louisiana State Treasurer. He'd argued cases before the Supreme Court. But he'd learned long ago that a simple country lawyer routine disarmed opponents better than aggressive cross-examination. They never saw the trap until it closed. The opening salvo. Passion meets preparation. The chairman gabbled the hearing to order. Representative Ocasio-Cortez, thank you for appearing today. As the House sponsor of the Green New Deal resolution, your perspective on its economic impacts is valuable to this committee's work. AOC nodded graciously. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm honored to discuss how we can save our planet while creating millions of good-paying jobs. She launched into her opening statement, a well-rehearsed combination of climate urgency and economic populism. Her voice rose and fell with practiced emotion, her hands gesturing for emphasis, her eyes finding cameras at key moments. It was a performance, and she was very good at it. The climate crisis is an existential threat, she declared, and it's also an economic opportunity. The Green New Deal isn't just about saving the planet. It's about creating millions of jobs, investing in communities that have been left behind, and building an economy that works for everyone, not just the wealthy few. Then she pivoted, her voice taking on an edge. But there are those who oppose progress. Senator Kennedy, with all due respect, represents the old way of thinking, fossil fuel politics, corporate interests over people's lives. Kennedy didn't react, just continued taking notes on his legal pad. AOC continued, warming to her attack. People like Senator Kennedy have taken money from oil companies. They profit from the very industries destroying our planet. They mock solutions because addressing climate change threatens their donors' profits. They're willing to let the planet burn as long as their campaigns are funded. She paused for effect. My generation will inherit the disaster his generation created, and we're done being polite about it. The progressive staffers in the gallery broke into applause before being shushed by security. AOC sat back, satisfied. She'd set the tone, framed the debate, and positioned herself as the champion of youth against the corrupt establishment. It was her standard playbook, and it usually worked. Kennedy finished writing something on his pad, then looked up with a mild expression. He waited until the room was completely quiet before speaking. "Well, Miss Ocasio-Cortez," he began, his drawl thick as molasses. "That was quite a speech, very passionate, very Instagram-ready." A few chuckles rippled through the room. AOC's smile tightened. Kennedy took off his glasses, cleaned them with his tie, put them back on. "Now, I'm just a simple country lawyer, so maybe you can help me understand something." Here it comes, people thought. The folksy setup before the devastating question. "You say I'm in the pocket of oil companies, that I take their money, that I profit from their donations." He looked at her with genuine curiosity. "How much money did oil companies give me, do you know?" AOC hesitated. "You've taken hundreds of thousands." "Try about $12,000, Kennedy interrupted gently. "Over 20 years in elected office. That works out to about $625 a year. Now, I'm not good at math, but even I can tell that's not enough to buy a pocket, much less a whole senator." Uncomfortable laughter. AOC's team was already checking the numbers on their phones. Kennedy leaned back. "But you know what? Let's not talk about my pockets. Let's talk about yours and what's in them. Because I've been doing some homework, and I've got some questions about that." He opened a folder on his desk. "Let's talk about your lifestyle, your choices, your actions. Because you spend a lot of time on Instagram telling working folks what they need to sacrifice. So I'm curious, what have you sacrificed?" AOC's confident expression flickered. "I don't see what my personal life has to do with—" "Everything, I'd say. If you're going to preach sacrifice, seems fair to see if you practice it. But we'll get to that." He pulled out a photograph. "First, let's talk about Amazon and Queens, and what happens when Instagram meets reality. Let's talk about 25,000 jobs and who paid the price for your viral moment." AOC's face went pale. She knew what was coming. Everyone did. And Senator John Kennedy, with the patient inevitability of Louisiana floodwater, was about to drown her in consequences. The Amazon debacle. Jobs killed for likes. Kennedy held up the photograph, an aerial view of Long Island City, Queens, with a plot of land marked in red. "This was supposed to be Amazon's second headquarters," he began conversationally. HQ2, they called it. 25,000 jobs. The company had picked New York, made the announcement, started planning. He set down the photo. "And then you killed it. Celebrated killing it. Called it a victory over corporate greed. Tweeted about how you'd saved New York from exploitation. Got a lot of likes for that, didn't you?" AOC leaned forward. "We saved $3 billion in corporate giveaways." "Now, see, that's interesting math," Kennedy interrupted, his drawl slowing. "You didn't save anything. You prevented future tax revenue on profits that would have been generated. That's not the same as having $3 billion, but I'm just a simple man who doesn't understand complicated economics." He gestured to the gallery. "So let's talk to someone smarter than me, someone who actually understands what jobs mean. Ms. Rodriguez, could you stand up, please?" A woman in her 40s rose from her seat. Hispanic, wearing a simple dress, her face showing the exhaustion of someone who'd worked too hard for too long. Maria Rodriguez had the look of every working mother in America. Tired, determined, hanging on. "Miss Rodriguez," Kennedy said gently, "would you tell Miss Ocasio-Cortez about your Amazon job?" Maria's voice was quiet but steady. "I had a job offer. Operations manager, $75,000 a year." She looked at AOC directly. "I'm a widow, 3 kids. At the time I was working 2 jobs, administrative assistant during the day cleaning offices at night, 60 hours a week to make $38,000 a year. Her voice cracked slightly. That Amazon job meant I could work one job, actually see my kids, maybe save for their college. It was the first time in years I felt like I could breathe. Maria's hands gripped the chair in front of her. Then you killed it. Called it exploitation. Said nobody needed those jobs. He did. You celebrated on Twitter, while I was figuring out how to tell my kids I wasn't getting the better job after all. She looked at AOC with pure pain. You know what exploitation is, Congresswoman? It's working 16 hours a day for $38,000. It's never seeing your children. It's choosing between fixing your car and buying your kids new shoes. Exploitation is watching you celebrate killing my job, while you post selfies about fighting for workers from your luxury apartment. Maria sat down, and the silence that followed was deafening. Kennedy let it breathe for a long moment before continuing. Ms. Rodriguez isn't alone. 25,000 jobs gone because you needed a viral moment. High-paying jobs. Good jobs. The kind that support families. He pulled out more photos. But it wasn't just those workers. It was everyone who depended on them. Look at these stores, these restaurants, coffee shops, dry cleaners. The images showed shuttered businesses, for lease signs in windows, empty storefronts that had once been thriving. These businesses counted on those Amazon workers. They hired extra staff, bought new equipment, took out loans to expand, because Long Island City was about to boom. Kennedy looked at AOC. Then you killed the deal, and they all paid the price. A man stood in the gallery, late 50s, worn suit. The look of someone who'd lost everything. My name is David Chen. I owned a deli 2 blocks from the proposed Amazon site. His voice carried the weight of defeat. I hired 3 new people when Amazon announced, took out a loan to expand, bought new equipment. My family put everything into preparing for those customers. He stared at AOC. Then you killed the deal. I laid off the workers I just hired, defaulted on my loan, lost my deli, lost everything my father built. His voice rose. You celebrated, while I lost my life's work. You got likes on Twitter, while my family lost our future. Was it worth it? Were those retweets worth destroying my business? David sat down, and Kennedy continued quietly. Long Island City was ready. Working families were ready. Small businesses were ready. But you decided you knew better. You decided 25,000 people didn't deserve those jobs because, what? Because Amazon is successful? Because you're a socialist who hates success? He leaned forward. You made working people pay the price so you could virtue signal. You destroyed businesses so you could trend on social media. Before AOC could respond, Kennedy pulled out another photo. This one showed AOC at the Met Gala, wearing an elaborate white dress with "Tax the Rich" painted in red letters across the back. This was the same week you killed those jobs, Kennedy noted. This dress cost more than most people make in a year to design and create. The ticket to that party, same thing. While Miss Rodriguez was figuring out how to feed her kids on 2 jobs, you were at a celebrity gala in a borrowed designer gown. He tilted his head. That dress said, "Tax the rich," but you killed jobs for the working class. You partied with celebrities while small business owners lost everything. The message on your dress said one thing. Your actions said another. AOC tried to defend herself. The dress was borrowed. It was making a statement about inequality. It made a statement, all right, Kennedy drawled. Statement was, I'm a socialist who enjoys capitalist luxury. Statement was, I'll kill your jobs, then party with celebrities. Statement was, sacrifice is for thee, not for me. He pulled out more documents. But it wasn't just Queens that suffered. New York City lost billions in economic activity that would have been generated. Jobs not created. Families not supported. Businesses not opened. Tax revenue not collected. Kennedy looked at the committee, and other cities learned a lesson. Don't deal with New York, because politicians like Miss Ocasio-Cortez will kill deals for Twitter likes. You made your city unreliable, hostile to business, all for social media fame. A construction worker stood, hard hat in hand, union jacket visible. I was hired for the Amazon build-out. 3 years of work, union wages, benefits for my family. Then she killed it. I was unemployed 6 months, lost my apartment, had to move in with my brother. Another person rose. I was going to open a child care center for Amazon employees, had investors, had a location picked out. Lost it all when she killed the deal. One after another, real people with real losses, not abstract economic theories, not political talking points, real human beings whose dreams died for a viral moment. Kennedy let them speak, then looked at AOC. So let's count the cost of your victory. 25,000 direct jobs gone, tens of thousands of support jobs gone, billions in economic activity gone, Ms. Rodriguez's dream of breathing gone, Mr. Chen's business gone, construction worker's apartment gone. He spread his hands. But you got a viral moment, got invited to the Met Gala, got millions of likes. I'm just a country lawyer, but that seems like a bad trade. Especially since none of those likes help Ms. Rodriguez feed her kids. AOC sat rigid, her carefully constructed social media image cracking under the weight of real consequences. No clever comeback, no perfect response. Just the faces of people she'd hurt staring back at her. And Kennedy wasn't done. He reached for another folder, this one even thicker. Now, let's talk about this Green New Deal, the thing we're supposedly here to discuss, the plan that's going to save the planet. Let's look at what it actually does and who it actually hurts. The Green New Deal, costs and casualties. Kennedy opened the folder and pulled out a single sheet of paper with a simple chart. More visual aid than data dump. Miss Ocasio-Cortez, you wrote the Green New Deal, promoted it, said it would save us. So let's talk about what it costs. He looked at her expectantly. How much does your plan cost? AOC straightened. We can't put a price on saving the planet. Climate change. Someone put a price on it, Kennedy interrupted mildly. Estimates say your plan costs more money than America has, more than our entire economy produces in a year, more than the government takes in, way more than we spend on everything else combined. He took off his glasses, cleaned them thoughtfully. I'm just a country lawyer, but I can count. And this, he gestured at the chart, this doesn't add up. So I'm curious, where does all that money come from? We'll tax the rich, AOC said, voice rising. Billionaires can pay their fair share. If we took every penny from every billionaire in America, Kennedy said slowly, everything they own, their houses, their yachts, their stocks, everything, it wouldn't be enough. Not even close. Then what? Who pays the rest? He looked around the room. Working people. The ones you claim to fight for. Because that's who always pays for socialist dreams, Miss Ocasio-Cortez. Leaders talk about taxing the rich, but working folks always foot the bill. Before she could respond, a man in work clothes stood in the gallery. Oil-stained jeans, steel-toed boots, the weathered face of someone who'd spent 20 years working outdoors. My name is Robert LeBlanc. I work on an oil rig. Been doing it 20 years. Good job. Good pay. I support my family. Got 3 kids in school. He looked at AOC directly. Your plan wants to eliminate my job in 10 years. Ban fossil fuels completely. His voice grew strained. What am I supposed to do? I'm in my 40s. No college degree. You want me to learn to code? Really? How do I feed my kids while I retrain for some job that might not even exist? Robert sat down heavily, and Kennedy continued. That's millions of Americans. In oil, gas, coal industries, millions of families depending on energy jobs. Your plan eliminates them all in a decade. He paused. But you don't talk about that in your Instagram videos, do you? You don't mention the truck drivers who will lose jobs, the factory workers, the mechanics, the normal folks who lose everything. A woman in a mayor's sash stood, small-town America personified. I'm the mayor of a coal town in Wyoming. Our town is small, a few thousand people. The coal mine is everything to us, hundreds of jobs. Most of the town works there or depends on it. Her voice shook. Your plan closes the mine immediately. What happens to us? Do we all just move, abandon our homes, our churches, our lives, our grandparents' graves? She looked at AOC with something like pity. You're from New York City. You can't imagine what it's like to have your entire town dependent on one industry. But we're real, and your plan destroys us. Kennedy nodded sympathetically. That's what happens when Instagram meets reality. The Instagram version says, green jobs for all. Reality says millions unemployed, small towns destroyed, families devastated. But he wasn't done. An elderly woman stood, clearly struggling financially even to attend the hearing. I'm on Social Security, she said, voice quavering. Fixed income. Barely make ends meet as it is already. Can't afford groceries and utilities some months. She looked at AOC with genuine fear. You want to ban natural gas? Make electricity more expensive. How do I heat my home in winter? I'm 78 years old. Do you want me to freeze to death? Is that your solution? Sacrifice the elderly to save the planet? The woman sat down, and the room was absolutely silent. Kennedy spoke quietly. Your plan doesn't just hurt workers, it hurts everyone. Energy prices go up. Everything goes up. Trucks that bring food use fuel. Ships that bring goods use fuel. Factories that make products use fuel. He gestured simply. Energy cost goes up. Everything costs more. And who does that hurt most? The wealthy? No, they'll be fine. It hurts people on fixed incomes, working families, the poor, the people you claim to champion. A younger man stood. I'm an economist. I've studied your plan. Want to know what happens? Manufacturing moves overseas, to countries that don't have these restrictions, to places that burn more coal, create more pollution. He looked at AOC. We lose jobs, and the planet loses. China keeps burning coal, making products cheaper. American workers are unemployed while Chinese workers pollute more. You haven't saved the planet. You've just outsourced the problem and killed American jobs in the process. Kennedy leaned back. So let me see if I understand your plan. It costs more than America has, kills millions of jobs, destroys small towns, drives up prices for everyone, hurting the poor and elderly most. Moves manufacturing to China, which pollutes more, doesn't even solve climate change. He looked at AOC over his glasses. But it sounds good on Instagram, and that's what matters to you, isn't it? Before she could answer, Kennedy pulled out photos from AOC's social media, luxury resort vacations, international travel, celebrity events. Here's what bothers me, though, he said, his drawl dripping with irony. You demand Americans sacrifice, give up jobs, pay higher prices, change their lifestyles. But what do you sacrifice? He showed image after image. Cabo, nice expensive resort. Martha's Vineyard, very exclusive. Miami Beach, luxury hotel, all while calling for economic sacrifice from working people. Kennedy showed AOC's Tesla. You drive electric. Good. But you don't pay parking tickets. Thousands of dollars in unpaid fines. You park illegally and just don't pay. Rules for thee, not for me. He looked at her sadly. You live rich while demanding workers live poor. You vacation at luxury resorts while telling coal miners to learn new trades. You party with celebrities while elderly women worry about freezing. That's not leadership, Miss Ocasio-Cortez. That's hypocrisy, luxury socialism, champagne progressivism. All for me, sacrifice for thee. AOC tried to respond, but her voice lacked conviction. The Green New Deal is necessary. Is it? Kennedy asked. Or is it just good branding, good content? Something that trends well, while destroying real lives. He gestured to the gallery, to Robert the oil worker, to the small-town mayor, to the elderly woman, to all the people whose lives would be upended by policies that sounded good in tweets, but crumbled under scrutiny. These are real people, Miss Ocasio-Cortez, not Instagram followers, not likes and shares. Real human beings who need jobs, who need affordable energy, who need their towns to survive. Kennedy closed the folder. But I guess they don't matter as much as your social media engagement. They don't photograph as well as Met Galas and luxury vacations. They're just inconvenient reality getting in the way of your performance. The weight of real consequences filled the room, and Kennedy wasn't finished. He had one more folder, one more exposure of the gap between AOC's image and her reality. The Lifestyle Audit, Champagne Socialism Exposed. Now, he said, reaching for his final set of documents, let's talk about how you actually live. Because you preach socialism, you preach equality, you preach about sharing wealth. But do you practice what you preach? Let's find out. Kennedy opened his final folder with the care of someone about to present the most damning evidence. Inside were photographs, social media screenshots, financial disclosures, a detailed documentation of the gap between AOC's message and her lifestyle. Miss Ocasio-Cortez, he began, his folksy tone still intact but his eyes sharp. You call yourself a democratic socialist. You talk about equality, about fair distribution of wealth, about how nobody needs to be rich while others struggle. He pulled out a photograph of a luxury apartment building. This is where you live in D.C. Navy Yard. Very nice building. Rooftop pool, gym, concierge service. Another photo. You pay more than twice what the median rent is in your district, the Bronx, where your constituents live, while tweeting about income inequality from your rooftop pool. A woman stood in the gallery, working class, clearly from the Bronx, wearing a cleaning service uniform. I live in her district, the woman said, voice tight with frustration. I work 2 jobs to afford a tiny apartment. No elevator, no amenities. I clean offices at night just to make rent. She pointed at AOC. She lives in luxury, rooftop pool, concierge, while tweeting about income inequality. While telling us we need to make sacrifices. How is that equal? How is that fair? She doesn't live like us. She lives like the rich she claims to fight. The woman sat, and Kennedy continued, Then there's your wardrobe. He displayed a montage of AOC's outfits from various events and appearances. Designer suits, Designer dresses, designer shoes, all expensive, all high-end brands, all while tweeting, "Tax the rich." He looked at her curiously. "I'm just wondering, who's paying for this? Because it's not what working people wear. It's not what people struggling to make rent can afford." AOC started to answer, but Kennedy was already moving to his next point. "Then there's your boyfriend's consulting firm." Kennedy pulled out business records. "Started right after you got elected. Interesting timing. His company provides what exactly? Marketing. Digital strategy. Vague things that are hard to measure. And who pays him? Tech companies with business before Congress. Same Congress where you sit on committees that regulate those companies." Kennedy showed a simple comparison. His income went from working class to wealthy. Jumped dramatically once you got power. What changed? Oh, right. His girlfriend became powerful in Congress. He looked at AOC. "Now, I'm just a country lawyer, but that looks like, what's the word? Corruption, conflict of interest, profiting from your position." Before AOC could respond, a young woman stood in the gallery, early 20s, tired-looking, wearing clothes that had seen better days. "I was an intern in her office," the woman said, voice shaking with emotion. "Full-time hours, unpaid. They called it experience, called it opportunity." Tears started. "I ate ramen every day, couldn't afford lunch. Walked to work to save metro fare. 50, 60-hour weeks for nothing. Zero." She looked at AOC with betrayal carved into every feature. "While you tweeted about living wage, while your boyfriend's income skyrocketed, while you lived in luxury, I made nothing. Working for someone who preaches workers' rights." The former intern's voice rose. "You used me, like you use everyone. You talk about exploitation while exploiting unpaid labor. You're everything you claim to fight against." She sat down, crying, and Kennedy's voice carried sadness. "Multiple unpaid interns, all working full-time, all making nothing, while you preach about living wage and workers' rights. While you demand corporations pay more, you're the boss, and you pay zero. That's not socialism, Miss Ocasio-Cortez. That's exploitation. Using people for your benefit while pretending to help them." A young man stood next, early 20s, college graduate, the look of someone who'd believed in something and been betrayed. "I believed in you," he said simply. "Voted for you, defended you online, majored in political science because of your message, wanted to fight for workers like you said." His voice cracked. "Now, I have massive student debt, can't find a job, because I believed socialism was the answer, because you made it sound noble and possible." He looked at AOC with the disappointment of a child realizing their hero is a fraud. "But it's a lie. You're a lie. You're rich, living in luxury. I'm broke and struggling. That's your socialism. Leaders rich, followers poor." Kennedy let that sink in before delivering his summary. "Let me see if I understand your version of socialism. You live in a luxury apartment while your constituents struggle in cramped spaces. You wear designer clothes while preaching equality. Your boyfriend gets rich off your position while you lecture about corporate greed. You don't pay your interns while demanding living wages. You vacation at luxury resorts while telling workers to sacrifice." He leaned forward. "That's not new, Miss Ocasio-Cortez. That's every socialist country ever. Venezuela, Cuba, Soviet Union. Leaders in palaces, people in poverty. You're just the American Instagram version." Kennedy's voice grew more serious. "But here's the real damage. Young people believe you. They follow you. They think socialism means equality, fairness, helping workers. But you've shown them what it really means. Leaders live in luxury. Everyone else sacrifices. Do as I say, not as I do." He gestured to the young man who'd spoken. "That young man believed your message, changed his whole life based on your promises. Now he's in debt with no prospects because he followed a fraud. Why?" Kennedy looked at AOC with genuine disappointment. "You're not a socialist. Socialists believe in equality, in sharing. You're a champagne socialist, limousine liberal. You believe in socialism for others, capitalism for yourself. You demand sacrifice from working people, while you sacrifice nothing. You kill jobs so you can virtue signal. You destroy businesses so you can trend on Twitter. You live in luxury while preaching equality. You exploit interns while demanding living wages. You're not fighting for the working class. You're performing for the laptop class and getting rich doing it." The room was silent except for muffled crying from the former intern, from the young graduate, from people who'd believed and been betrayed. AOC sat frozen, her Instagram perfect image shattered. No filter could fix this. No clever caption could spin it. She'd been exposed as exactly what Kennedy said: all performance, no substance. And he still had one more move to make. The final reckoning. Performance versus reality. Kennedy gathered his folders, stacking them neatly. The hearing room was completely silent. 200 people holding their breath, waiting for the final blow. "I'm just a simple country lawyer from Louisiana," Kennedy began, his drawl thick and slow. "But even I can see what you are, Miss Ocasio-Cortez." He leaned back, his demeanor friendly, but his words devastating. "Your Instagram socialism. All filter, no substance. You kill jobs for likes, destroy businesses for retweets. You live rich while preaching poor. You exploit interns while demanding living wage. Your boyfriend gets rich off your position. You party with celebrities while workers suffer." Kennedy gestured to the gallery, to the faces that would define this hearing. Maria Rodriguez lost her $75,000 job, still working 2 jobs. Mr. Chen lost his business, lost everything. Robert, the oil worker, facing unemployment because of your fantasy plan. The grandmother on fixed income can't afford to heat her home under your plan. Your intern worked full-time for $0. The college graduate, massive debt believing your lies. His voice grew gentle. "These are real people, Miss Ocasio-Cortez. Real lives, real consequences. Not Instagram posts, not viral moments. Real human beings whose lives you've hurt with your policies and your hypocrisy." AOC tried one last defense. "This is just an attack because I challenge power." "You are power," Kennedy interrupted, not unkindly. "You're a member of Congress with a 6-figure salary. Your boyfriend got wealthy off your position. You live in luxury, party with celebrities. You're not challenging power. You're wielding it, and wielding it badly, hurting people with it." He opened his hands. "Your policies don't add up. Amazon. You killed 25,000 jobs to get likes. Green New Deal costs more than America has, kills millions of jobs, hurts the poor and elderly most, doesn't even solve the problem. Lifestyle, luxury for you, sacrifice for everyone else." Kennedy's voice carried finality. "The math doesn't work. The policy doesn't work. It's performance art, not governance. It's Instagram activism, not real leadership." The gallery erupted in applause, not for AOC, but for the victims. Maria Rodriguez was crying with relief, finally heard. David Chen was hugging the construction worker, shared pain creating solidarity. Even some Democrats were nodding, unable to defend the indefensible. AOC stood abruptly, her chair scraping back. "I don't have to tolerate this harassment." "It's not harassment," Kennedy said gently. "It's accountability. Those people in the gallery, they're your constituents. They're the people you claim to fight for. They deserve answers, not Instagram stories." But AOC was already moving toward the exit, her staff scrambling to follow. No dramatic speech, no powerful moment, just retreat. Defeat. The cameras caught it all. The congresswoman who'd built an empire on social media fleeing from reality. The chairman didn't try to stop her. He simply announced, "The committee will vote tomorrow on subpoenaing Representative Ocasio-Cortez's financial records and referring this matter to the House Ethics Committee for investigation into potential conflicts of interest." As the room cleared, Kennedy remained seated. A reporter managed to reach him. "Senator Kennedy, do you think Representative Ocasio-Cortez will face consequences?" Kennedy considered. "I didn't do this to be mean. I did it to expose truth. Miss Ocasio-Cortez built a brand on caring about workers, but her policies kill jobs. Her lifestyle mocks equality. American people deserve better than performance art. They deserve representatives who actually help them, not ones who use them for social media content." He stood, gathering his folders. "She'll face political consequences, already is. But the real consequence is what she's done to those people in that gallery. You can't undo that with an apology or a tweet. Those are real lives she's hurt. That's the cost of Instagram socialism." Aftermath. The fall of an empire. November 18th, 2025. The political landscape had shifted dramatically. In New York's 14th congressional district, 3 challengers had announced primary runs against AOC. All Democrats, all from the Bronx, all campaigning on the same message: real representation, not performance art. Early polling showed AOC losing badly. Her own district had turned against her. The Amazon deal's failure, now 3 years old, had become the defining issue. 25,000 jobs we could have had was the rallying cry. The House Ethics Committee had opened formal investigations. AOC's boyfriend's consulting firm was under IRS review. Questions about her apartment, her wardrobe, her lifestyle, all now under scrutiny. Progressive organizations were distancing themselves. "We supported her ideals, not her hypocrisy," one statement read. The squad members, her closest allies, had gone conspicuously quiet. On November 15th, AOC held a brief press conference. She looked diminished, her usual confidence gone. "After much reflection and consultation with my family, I have decided not to seek re-election in 2026. I want to focus on other ways to serve the progressive movement and address the serious challenges facing our generation." It was political speak for, "I'm done, I can't win, I'm getting out before it gets worse." In Queens, small business owners who'd survived the loss of Amazon gathered at David Chen's new location. A much smaller deli, but at least he was back in business. "I don't hate her," David told a local reporter. "I pity her. She thought politics was about being famous, about going viral. She never understood it was about helping real people do real things. Now she knows. Too late for us, but she knows." Maria Rodriguez, still working her 2 jobs, was more direct. "I hope voters remember this. When politicians talk about fighting for you, ask what they've actually done, not what they've tweeted. What she's done for me? She did nothing but take away hope." The young intern who'd worked unpaid had become a minor celebrity, doing interviews about exploitation in progressive offices. They preach one thing and practice another. The hypocrisy is breathtaking. The oil worker from Louisiana, Robert LeBlanc, summed it up simply in a Facebook post that went viral. "They tried to make me the villain for drilling oil, but I'm just a dad trying to feed my kids. She's the one living in luxury while calling for sacrifice. Who's the real villain?" Epilogue. The lesson of accountability. 6 months later, in the 2026 primaries, AOC would lose badly to a moderate Democrat who'd spent 20 years as a community organizer in the Bronx, someone who'd actually helped people, someone who understood that governance wasn't performance. The era of Instagram socialism had met reality and crumbled. The champagne socialists had been exposed. The luxury progressives had been called to account. In Wyoming, the coal town's mayor issued a statement. "We're relieved the Green New Deal won't move forward in its current form. Our families, our livelihoods, our community, they all depend on realistic energy policy, not social media stunts." Senator Kennedy, when asked about AOC's decision not to run again, was characteristically understated. "I hope she uses this time to reflect, to understand that real people were hurt by her policies, that Instagram likes don't pay rent, that viral moments don't feed families. Maybe she'll learn. Maybe she won't. But at least voters will have a chance to choose someone who actually wants to govern, instead of perform." The hearing became a case study in accountability, how one afternoon of tough questions could shatter an empire built on social media. The lesson: eventually the math has to add up. The policies have to work. The performance has to meet reality. And when it doesn't, when Instagram meets the real world, the filters can't save you. The truth always wins. Sometimes it just takes a simple country lawyer to make everyone see.